Welcome. So we're coming live from Watford City right here in the Picken. It's an incredible place. I heard about this place in April last year. To be honest, it's in the middle of nowhere and it gets like minus 40 degrees, and so I chose not to come here. But after a year, you can't ignore the numbers. And John, who's one of our sophisticated partners, came up here 4 weeks ago, did all the research, got extremely excited, and pretty much said, we've got to come up here. So we've come up here, we've spent the last 24 hours here. We've been very privileged to be shown around by Jeff and Mike. And obviously you guys know John, you met him from South Africa. Guys, just tell us, before we get started, the most important question is this just a blip? Or is this something sustainable? What is actually happening in the Picken? And Mike, you've been coming back here for 19 months. Just tell us about yourself and why you're here.
Well, again, I've lived through many booms and busts, and I was involved in Florida real estate from 2000 to 2007. And from 2000 to 2005, it was a great run and a great party. We all made a lot of money. And in 2005 to 2007, it died. And 2007 to 2011, it was dead. And I vowed never to follow a boom bust area anymore. Florida and most American real estate, they have their cycles of up and down, but it's based on what I would call irrational exuberance. It's based on interest, it's based on rumors, it's based on social media. This is based on fundamentals. So we're sitting here in Watford City where there's more oil under the ground than there might be anywhere in the world. And we learned about it 2 years ago. Like you, I did not want to come here. It was cold, it's ugly, there's no women here. But we decided to take the plunge, and the first day I came here, I realized that it could be the single best opportunity of my business life. There was an imbalance of supply and demand, and I believe that imbalance will last in Watford City for several years. I believe the demand for jobs and housing and auxiliary businesses, commercial, retail, industrial, will last longer than I am alive. The state started at 700,000 people. I think it's almost up to 900,000 people. You look at that percentage, it's probably the greatest population percentage growth in the history of the United States. So this is for real. We are very excited. I spend thousands of dollars a week coming here because I'm planning to make millions of dollars on the back end.
Tell us, Jeff, from your side, give us a little bit of a perspective of your background, and I mean, you actually live here. Why are you here?
I was a banker for about 22 years, and I actually came out here last summer or spring with a client who is involved in a man camp, and he had asked me to do a loan on it, and I came out here. And by the time I went back after a day in the Picken, I quit my job as the president of a bank, and I came out here to get into this game because I believed in it so much. There's so much going on. It's the biggest economic boom probably in the last 100 years anywhere, and it's in my backyard. So naturally, I'm in this game.
Tell us though, I mean, John, you talk about whether the oil is sustainable, because at the end of the day, everything is driven around one industry here, which is the risk, and a lot of people are concerned about that. You came out here 4 weeks ago and were extremely excited. Why? Why does this have sustainability? What are the fundamentals here?
From a macro view, America can't run its military, its agriculture, its economic engine without oil. And I don't think people recognize the significance of that. If something happens to oil, we shut down as a country. And so when you look at the need for it and the need for us to be energy independent, especially from the OPEC countries, this is a huge political driver. The risks, when you look at it, there's basically four risks. There's the production risk. Is the production real? Is there the oil underground? How long it's going to last? There's the cost risk if the price of oil goes down. And then there is the fracking risk. Is there going to be environmental resistance to fracking? And the last risk is supply, oversaturation of supply versus demand. And when you look at all of those risks, the first three, after you do a lot of research, are not even an issue. They're a complete non-issue. As far as the resistance to fracking, that's not an issue here. The saturation of, the price of oil, no one seems to think that price of oil is going to go down. It's only going to go up, which is going to feed the industry. And then from the So really it kind of comes down to the last risk, which is saturation of supply.
Can I just hold you there quickly? We do apologize for all the noise behind us. There's something like 18,000 trucks that go through the city every day, and every time I do this, the trucks disappear. But I mean, if you do hear them in the background, these are the main trucks coming through the city. But sorry, John.
So at the end of the day, from a macro perspective, we see, if you've been watching Bakken oil plays, and you're an individual investor and you're on certain email lists, you've seen certain promotions, you see the incredible yields up here, and they almost look too good to be true. Well, when you get up here and you're seeing this community and this property and that property all at these ridiculous incomes, then it's very easy to substantiate those yields. So the question kind of comes down to, where are the opportunities that have more shelf life? And that's something that we're probably going to talk about, because you're starting to see a gravitation away from the high-density residential workforce lodging man camp sort of thing, where you have rent per bed, versus now you're seeing a lot of political pressure, and a lot of the companies here want people to stay and build a true city, that everything's gravitating more towards the low-density residential townhome duplexes and single-family homes. So the short-term yields aren't as good with those, but it's going to be more consistent and longer lasting. And so the question really kind of comes down to, from a risk perspective, it's just really a question of how do we stay in front of that imbalance of supply and demand in the right product.
Just before we get into the property opportunity, I just want to understand the oil thing properly. And Mike, you've told us a lot about the fracking and the size of the field. If I'm buying property and it's going to run out of oil in 2 to 3 years, who's investing here? How much sustainability is there? Why is fracking working now when why didn't they do this 10 years ago? What's happening?
Well, that's probably the most significant question, and really the answer to why this is such a great opportunity. It's all about technology. They've known since the 1950s that North Dakota was sitting on the Bakken oil shale. They could not extract it profitably. When an oil company decides to drill for oil, the average cost is about $10 to $12 million. In 1982, every 10 times they went down, they only came up 3 times with oil, and they had what they call 7 dry wells. Thus the boom and the bust. In 2004, now by the way, to address one of John's concerns, which he says it's not, and he's right, fracking, which is a nickname for hydraulic fracturing, which is just a sophisticated technological way to go down farther, stronger, and actually fracture the rock, which is below the ground, which then oil, natural gas, and salt water is extracted. That's been around forever, since the 50s. The combination of horizontal drilling, which means you go down and 2 miles across, opened the world and became the game changer. Continental Oil, an international and national multi-billion-dollar company, was one of the first to recognize this, and in 2004 started deploying hundreds of millions of dollars and then eventually tens of billions of dollars to North Dakota. They are the leaders. Over 200 companies followed, including Exxon, Halliburton, BP, Hess, Schlumberg. I forget all the names of the Baker Hughes, Calfrac. Any large multi-billion dollar company is here. So the technology allowed them to extract it, and now there is literally a 99.9% chance when you drill, you extract. Also, economically, that $12 million is now made up in 8 months. So in 8 months, they get their $12 million back from the oil. After that, it's pure, well, almost pure profit. So that's why everybody is so excited, and that's why everybody is moving here, and that's why we have such an imbalance of infrastructure. As Jeff, the broker, will tell you, there's not enough roads, there's not enough housing, there's not enough businesses. So we are really in, as Jeff said it, one of the great economic booms in the history of the United States, maybe the world, and the sustainability. I'll just end with this. The Bakken, which everybody talks about, we're in the Bakken boom, is only 3 layers. There are 21 layers below the Bakken. They've just started exploring the Three Forks. Three Forks, correct? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the Three Forks, they think, might have more oil shells and oil reserves than the Bakken. That will take us longer than everybody listening is alive to get all that oil out.
It's an important thing. Sorry, Jeff, just quickly. from what I understand, there's more oil under here than the UAE, Saudi Arabia. You guys at the moment, according to T-Boone Pickens, spend $1 trillion every year importing oil, sending your money to the Middle East. What year will you be self-sufficient?
All the studies show aggressively 2017 and conservatively 2018. So we're looking at about a 3 to 5 year time that we will be 100% self-sufficient, and that is a game changer. We believe not only for North Dakota, the United States, we would believe the world. One last note on that. So during the Great Recession that I don't know if the people in South Africa went through, but we certainly painfully went through it. 49 states in the country, where if we have 50, were between 9.5% and 17% unemployment. That same 3 years, 2008, 9, 10, and now 11 and 12, North Dakota basically has 0 unemployment. That is a staggering statistic. Everything we've been talking about, that's the most mind-boggling statistic. Everybody who wants to work can work, and the wages are fantastic because there's so much profit in oil. And we haven't even talked about the natural gas explosion, which we can skip for another seminar.
Yeah. Just from your side, Jeff, you had something to say?
Just quick on the back of that, I saw a stat a few weeks back that the last 2 years, the top income grossing companies in the world, the top 20, 19 of them are in oil and gas. The only one that's not is Apple. And of those 19, they're all here. So they're here, they're investing billions.
I think you said $7 billion, and you've got big names like KKR, Warren Buffett, and the guys that are really investing infrastructure here, and they've obviously done their due diligence and do a lot more research than we're capable of in terms of the sustainability. But now let's move on. Okay, right, so we agree that the fundamentals here, we agree the oil wells are happening, we agree that people are coming to this town. We've all heard these stories about people sleeping in their cars and RV parks and man camps and these massive yields you can get. Where is the market in terms of the lifestyle? Where is the opportunity? What should we be doing as investors?
Again, a year ago, people were sleeping in their cars. Then it moved to a man camp, a very quick form of housing. Get anything up that can house these guys so that they can work. That stage has passed. Now the city and the county are shutting those down effectively. You can still run the ones that are on the ground. They'll still sustain to a certain extent, but there's certainly a need to move into a more permanent form of housing. The county wants that, the city wants that, the companies want that, because they don't want their crews to be out here and not be happy, and they'll turn and they'll move and they'll leave because that's expensive. So there's a natural maturation of this market that's occurred, and now we're at this stage to where, as John said, we went to the apartment phase 2 also on that, but now we're starting, as also Michael said, there's families and now here and stuff. So the housing market's big, it's strong, it's doing well, but there's, from the investor side, there's a lot of competition also in the housing side. One thing that people haven't paid as much attention to that they should is the commercial piece, because now that we've got these guys on the ground, they have a house, they need to be fed, they need a place to shop, they need a place to go, they need entertainment of some form. That does not exist. The commercial piece is, from the supply and demand, extremely imbalanced and such. So the one thing that we spoke about this week, when you guys asked me what would you do, there's a massive need for office space, massive need for retail, anything on the commercial side, because everybody's so focused when they come out here on the news, and what they hear is that, the housing and the man camps. Yes, that's there, but there's a need that no one's paying attention to. That is that next stage.
If we look at the residential, you mentioned that when you came out here 12 months ago, you were expecting by now for over 1,000 units to be built and on the ground. And I think you said yesterday there's only been something like 30 delivered in the last 12 months. Talk us a little bit through the imbalance of, because in most of these markets the curve goes both ways and we have an oversupply problem, but there's quite a few constraints here to supply.
Yeah, there's a lot of massive constraints. One would be utilities. The infrastructure is just not here. The growth has been so fast and so massive that they can't keep up. They can't possibly keep up. Water, sewer, power can take 5 to 18 months. You have to pay for it up front. You have to have the engineering, everything, to even get on the list, to even have an idea how soon you will get your power. So that's a massive constraint. Also, you've got the landowners also who are scared, and they're not used to this, and they're scared that their land will get tied up. So they want everybody to come in and buy their land on that day and not have any due diligence time frame. But as the investor, you need that. So there's issues there. The county zoned April 24th. Prior to that date, you could come in and build anything. Since that date, that's changed, and now that's been a complex thing, and the zoning laws aren't that good. They're slightly gray, and that's causing some issues. So there's an opportunity in that the demand is strong. It continues to grow at a steady pace, and it won't stop. There's been a lot of concern that we're going to oversupply too quickly. The shocking thing that's happened this year is that has not happened. It can't happen. There's too many barriers in there. So in a sense, that supply is going to come in some smaller stair steps. So it'll come. It's a race, and you want to be on that front end, but that risk of oversupply isn't as nearly as strong as I had thought a year ago.
I think something else that people don't understand is that it gets to minus 40 degrees here in the winter. The frost is 8 feet deep and deeper, and therefore for 3 to 6 months of the year you can't even build anyway. And so, but Mike, from your perspective, from what we've seen and you've shown us around, I mean, that progression from the man camp now to nice apartments and single family homes, that's the sustainable model going forward. Tell us a little bit about that.
I will, and let me just piggyback on what Jeff said. The one thing that I think he missed, and that your audience should understand, the other constraint on this boom has been deployment of capital from the New York Wall Street financial firms. So I work in that sector. I commute, and I've been in New York for the last 13 months preaching that they should come here because of the weather, because of the location, and because of the fear that it wasn't sustainable. They didn't really want to make that move, thus created an opportunity for local entrepreneurs to move. That's a good and a bad. The positive is the people who came first and put a foot on the ground and develop are doing very well and will do well. The other opportunity for people like us is those people that came in weren't as sophisticated and weren't as highly capitalized as they should be. So now, once KKR, as you referred to, from New York, put $150 million up the street here in Williston, it opened everybody's eyes. And it is a race. And now all the big people from Beijing and from South Africa and from some of the largest economic firms in the world are coming in here. So you need to move quickly to kind of ward that off. Now, answering your direct question about the evolution, there's been a housing evolution. As Jeff said, I was here 19 months ago. 3 nights I slept in a hotel. I got lucky that had one vacancy that I paid $180 for that you wouldn't pay $5 for in your country. There were ants, and it was like 113 square feet. It wasn't cleaned and all that, but there was, again, a very, very strong demand. There were, everything you read about, everything you've seen on YouTube, there were people sleeping in their cars. Walmart, for 2 years, opened up their parking lots at 11 p.m. They had a security guard there. The first 3,000 people that drove in got to sleep in their cars. And these aren't homeless people. These are people earning wages of $65,000 to $150,000 American dollars. So they had the money, they just nowhere to stay. So in order to maximize and capitalize on that boom of people, smart or not smart people came in and started building anything they could. As Jeff said, there was no zoning. So they built shacks, and they built tents, and they built mobile homes, and they built little man camps that you guys, I think, have seen in the last 2 days, and they got great yields, as John will talk about. $150 a day, $4,000, $5,000 a month. Now, these people who have been here for a year don't like their lifestyle. As Jeff said, there's no entertainment, there's no amenities, so they at least want to have a place to live that they can call home. So the evolution has been to multi-family apartments. Right over here, if you look down there, you'll see a beautiful new multi-family development, and there's many of those going up. Single-family houses that can be rented or purchased, duplex houses. There is a very, very, very strong migration. And last but not least, and I don't want to belabor this point, you have to understand the clients. Who are the clients here? These are gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, very few women here, that come here from all over the country, that whether they have skills or not, this is an opportunity. There's no unemployment. They're being paid very high wages, as much overtime as they want, and they leave their family, they leave their house, they leave their home, and they work sometimes 2-3 weeks at a time, then they commute back. Well, if you're married, or if you have children, or if you have parents that you want to be with and spend time with, or good friends, you don't get that opportunity here in these little man camps. Thus, the evolution of single-family and multi-family structures that are more normal to a normal culture, so they can bring their families there. And that is the new boom. And again, as you guys know, I'm involved with a few of those developments. We basically think we can pre-sell all of those, and the city and the county and the state are supporting us because they want those structures. They want a self-sustaining community, just like all of us live, not just an oil boom town.
Tell me something, John, from your perspective. One of the problems that's happened here is, as any investor, we want to have an exit strategy. And so a lot of the developers have come out and tried to build homes, and then they've had a lot of people buy the properties, but something like 80% of people haven't actually been able to get mortgages. So I, as an investor, sit and I think, yeah, okay, right, I'm going to get a great return, but what happens if I ever want to sell? You've got a lot of experience, which you've been doing for a long time in America with regards to leasehold. Explain the strategy as how I, as an investor, could buy a residential property and have an exit strategy.
Yeah, like you said, Scott, the pioneers that have started to do the low-density housing here, the townhomes and the duplexes and the single-family, which, by the way, in residential real estate in the United States, that's the most liquid type of real estate you can invest in, because underwriters don't see it as high risk as far as an end buyer purchasing the home and getting a loan for it, up to 97%. In some areas like this with USDA financing, 100% of your purchase price. But the downside with that in this market is, like Mike was saying, these employees here, these workers here, have great incomes, they've got cash, but they don't have credit. And they might have a house back home that they're underwater on, or they have to sell and they can't get 2 loans. But for whatever reason, these pioneers that are doing this low-density residential housing that have tried to sell it have found that up to 80% of the folks that want to buy them can't get the financing for them. So it creates an opportunity for an investor to come in here, purchase the house to capitalize the builder so they can continue doing their thing, and then rent the house to a local worker who has good cash, can give you good option money up front, get a great yield for 2 to 3 years on a 2 to 3 year lease, and then have a potential exit strategy for you, the investor, because that tenant can potentially buy the house at the end of that 2 to 3 year window when they can stabilize their credit. And we would be very proactive about doing that in conjunction with managing that lease option.
So I mean, basically, in comparison with a man camp where possibly I might get a higher yield, there's a good opportunity in a year that my man camp will be unzoned and I'll literally have to tear it down with no income. Versus here, where I might earn slightly lower yield, but it's much more sustainable. I have a proper traditional American home with an exit strategy that you've used for many years in terms of what you're doing. Now, guys, you talk a lot about staying in front of progress. And, you know, when you look around here, there's a lot of residential development going on. A lot of people are talking about it. There's a lot of people coming in from all over the place. But, Jeff, you've got a fantastic story, and you mentioned it to us yesterday with regards to commercial. And we, you know, John and myself and Mike and Henny and everyone's eyes picked up. Tell us a little bit about your experience with regards to commercial and when you first got here and how it was actually.
When I first came out here, I had to beg for an office space. It was in a basement of a building that's probably was built in 1910 or so. Not clean, not nice. It was about 8 feet by 8 feet. I had my desk in there. I slept on an air mattress. And at night, I would have to put my chair up on the desk so I would even have space for the mattress. And I found out quickly that putting that chair that's on wheels on the desk without having that chair secured in some way was a bad idea, because it would fall all on my head in my sleep. So, and I stayed in that office for 4 months because there was no space. Finally, at the main bank here in town, they had a space come open, and I knew that because I was selling some ground for them, and I begged. I mean, I actually got down on my knees and I begged the gal that we could have that office space. And we had a hard time getting in there. It was not cheap. We had to promise also that every deal that we had, every client that we had, that we would shop to that bank in town. Since that date, that was last September, there's been no new office space come open, and I'm not aware of any office space that's actually come open at all. So there's a massive need for office space, retail in every form. Our office, we've had every week since we've been there, someone has called us and asked us to sublease some space. They've called and asked us for space. They've called and asked, come in and said, can I just lease this office even? Up to amounts that would almost pay our rent. And in some cases, we have done that for short time frames to help out groups that we work with. So the demand is massive. There's no supply at all. And strangely enough, there doesn't seem to be anyone in the market to build that. They're so focused on housing. That's what they hear in the news, and they come out here, they hear about the man camps and the amounts that are paid, so they're all focused on that. But there's this segment that as the market has matured, we're getting people's housed. Now it's changing into how we house them, but the commercial side and the infrastructure is relatively untouched, and there's certain segments such as office space that's completely untouched.
I mean, you came out here as, you know, you've actually lived here, you've got yourself a commercial office space. Someone like yourself, Mike, you're a commuter. You come from Ohio, you fly in, which according to the Business Bureau or something, there's 1,300 businesses that have moved into this place in the last 2 years. The meetings we've had have been in hotels like the one behind us, restaurants. We got lost 4 times going to the wrong restaurant for a meeting, you know, and there's very little productive space to be able to sit with people. What is the capacity for even the commuting people? I mean, there's no office space for the people living here, but even the people commuting.
No, we have to be very creative. This is my office, ladies and gentlemen. We have, like as you said, coffee houses, restaurants, cars, other people's offices. It's very, very difficult. I think there's a tremendous need. Everybody that I deal with, you know, I come on 2 commuter planes to get here. 80% of the people are oil workers coming back to work. The other 20 people are like me. 20% are like me, doing business, and it's very difficult. And the high profits and the high amount of money that's transferred back and forth certainly would create a very, very strong demand for executive suites, small offices, large offices. And I think that is the next boom. And I think the people that are going to be involved with that first are going to make a killing, and I'll be the first tenant.
Just from that perspective, you know, I think one of the things that's always very important from a property, we spoke about the twist in the residential side, but John, you've also got quite a lot of experience. You mentioned executive suites in Orlando and have done this before. Tell us a little bit about your concept with regards to the executive suites and what you want to do here.
Yeah, without giving away the secret sauce too much, and we're doing this more to protect you than to keep you in suspense, because we want to be first to market with it. We don't want a bunch of replicators. So essentially what we're able to do is we can usher the individual investor who wants a tangible deed to a cash flow box and doesn't want to play in the residential real estate side, but wants to get into the commercial world. We're going to be able to basically create smaller pieces of office cash flow boxes for the individual investor out there that wants to come into the commercial.
So guys, it's been fantastic. You know, we've only been here for 24 hours. You've been absolutely wonderful. I know, John, you came up here 4 weeks ago. Mike showed you around, got you hugely excited. On the back of that, Henny and I jumped on an airplane and have been here, so we really want to thank you. You know, we've got a simple philosophy when it comes to investment, and it's having the right partners on the ground and getting the right information. And, you know, a lot of guys sit at home, they read brochures, they go on the internet, they watch YouTube, they see mountain camps at 46% and they think, wow, fantastic opportunity. But we actually come here and we learn from the locals. You know, we learn from the guys who've been doing this for 2 years in many instances, and you've introduced us to all your partners on the ground. And I know from our perspective, from John and I's perspective, that's been hugely valuable. I mean, John, you mentioned how Mike's helped us jump through the barriers. I mean, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Mike and I go back from the peak development days, and he's got a lot of experience in real estate development. And one thing that I think people don't realize is that the real estate business is less about sticks and bricks and dirt, and it's more about managing a company where you have to select the right people for your company. And when you have that paradigm shift, the emphasis goes from, yeah, it's easy actually to analyze a property. What's hard is identifying the right people who say what they're gonna, who can do what they're gonna say, who have the experience, who are conservative as opposed to aggressive with their income and their expense assumptions and so forth. And what I think we've done is we've accelerated or collapsed a 6-month to 1-year due diligence window by immediately getting into some of the top circles in local real estate development, because we have people on the ground that are rooted in the community here, that know the people down at the court, at the county and so forth, that can help speed things along and expedite so that we can actually deliver what we intend to. And I don't think people put enough emphasis on that. So really, it's more about a people business than it is a real estate sticks and bricks thing. And we easily have the best people on the ground here to execute on some of the things that we're going to be bringing to investors.
I think the important thing there is that it's not just about the upside, it's also we can limit the downside, because they're showing us where to invest, where not to invest, to make sure that you invest with places with the right zoning, the places where you've actually got the water and the sewer and, you know, all the sustainable stuff that they actually need going forward. So again, guys, we really want to thank you for your time. It's been absolutely wonderful being shown around in terms of where we're at. I think for the investors out there really is 2 opportunities. On the residential side, one has to look at the sustainable, the single family homes, the apartments, the stuff that's going to be around for a long time. And John's got some great plans working with Mike and Jeff to be able to do the 3-year lease options. And then with regards to Wealth Migrate and the commercial side, well, I mean, that's just the really exciting thing where Jeff and Mike have put us in contact with one of the developers who's on the ground here. You know, he has his building team. A lot of people think, oh, you know, we just build something. Well, you've actually got to get all the builders to come here. You've got to house them. He's got his, what do they call it, boots on the ground here. He's got his track record. He's got his experience. He's got a whole master plan development. And we've already in 24 hours tied up opportunities, done deals so that we can get this commercial off the ground. And, you know, the one thing I think I've learned is that everyone in this market talks about speed of implementation. You know, first to market is the guy that will win. And, you know, by having the partners and having the right information, we can go fast but safely. So thanks so much, guys. It's been wonderful, and we look forward to getting involved. And as we've said to you a couple of times, we'll see you in a year when the sun is out again, because I'm not sure about the minus 40 degrees for me yet.
Jeff and I would like to see you in January. Bring your hats and your gloves and your muffins and everything that's going to keep you warm, because it gets pretty cold.
Cool. Thanks very much, everyone. Cheers.